Good evening. My name is Jameson Strasberg. I am a candidate for Masters of Curriculum and Education at Averett University. And I'm here this evening to talk to you about a brief history of education through both assessment and reform of American education policy. So let's start at the beginning. We're going to take it all the way back to 1779. We're going to start our journey talking about Thomas Jefferson and his first proposal of government-funded public schools. In 1779, while Jefferson was governor of Virginia, he proposed the idea that a public school system should be created in all of the states to promote an active and engaged citizenry. Jefferson said that citizens of a representative republic need a body of knowledge on which to base decisions. They need to be familiar with the political process and need to have the attitudes and demonstrate behaviors that contribute to its effectiveness. And in Jefferson's mind, the only way to do this was to have a universal education system which would be funded through taxpayer dollars run by the states. While it was not adopted, Jefferson's plan actually became the blueprint for the modern American education system. We move on to 1827. Here with Horace Mann and the Massachusetts public school system. In 1827, Massachusetts became one of the first states to pass a law requiring all towns or localities with a population of 500 or more families to set up free public high schools. Now, as that system grew, by 1837, Horace Mann oversaw the creation of a statewide common school system for all white children, and a interesting fact is that it became one of the first unified curriculums, focusing on the three main areas: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Ironically, it's also the first school system to have an adopted textbook, being the New England Primer. As we continue on, the federal government now gets involved in 1867 during Johnson's presidency. The Federal Office of Education was established. Originally, it was founded as a cabinet office. However, due to post-Civil War tensions, states' rights advocates, that because education was not an express power in the Constitution, therefore under the Ninth Amendment it would be a state right, a power reserved to the states, the Congress backed it down to a federal office within the Department of Interior. And really, at that point, the Federal Office of Education, while it was the first national involvement in education, all it really did, its sole purpose was to collect data about education. However, the ironic thing is there wouldn't be any standard until the 1960s for that data. All right, now we move on to the 20th century, and we begin our journey into national assessment. In 1926, we start seeing the first nationwide standardized testing programs being developed. Part of this goes with the move into industrialization, and especially in the urban areas, businesses wanted to have a say in educational curriculum and prepare better workers to work in their factories. At the same time, the Ivy League colleges formed the College Entrance Examination Board in 1902. To ensure quality students being admitted into our nation's universities. Eventually, these are the people that would form the SAT, and we see our first college entrance exam. 1935, the state of Iowa created the Iowa Every Pupil Tests, which today is known as the Iowa Test of Basic Skills, which honestly became one of our first national benchmarks of what schools are doing. Another big policy change in 1954, the legendary Brown versus Board of Education case, where the Supreme Court unanimously overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, claiming that separate but equal is not constitution, and it actually does violate the 14th Amendment. According to Chief Justice Earl Warren, that segregation is bad because it solely Let me start that over. Chief Justice Warren said that segregation on the basis of race generates an inferiority status among minorities, and that in itself is not equal. Brown versus Board sets the precedence for many sweeping changes across education, including special education, bilingual education, Title IX for sports, beginning what would be the end of discrimination in education. Moving on to 1958, in the height of the Cold War, America found themselves behind the Soviets with the launch of Sputnik in 1957. Being Cold War, President Eisenhower felt this a threat to national security and that America did not have enough scientists, engineers, mathematicians, that we were in big trouble. So this is the first time that the national government dumps millions of dollars into public schooling, primarily to promote science, technology, education, math, encouraging kids to take physics, encouraging kids to get into mathematics and engineering. And this is also one of those first moments where the federal government actually really gets involved. Instead of honoring the state right to education, the federal government claims it under national security, commerce, and defense clauses in the Constitution, claiming them under implied powers. As the 20th century moves on, we move into the Johnson administration, where we see really the modern education system forming. In 1965, as a result of the war on poverty and the birth of Head Start, we see for the first time millions of dollars now being put into state public school systems that serve the economically disadvantaged. Most of us as teachers, we know this as Title I. 1965, the Head Start program was formed to help break the cycle of poverty. It provided preschool education for low-income preschoolers to enter school with the same vocabulary, pre-reading skills as higher income students. This is also one of the first times we see an attempt to close the achievement gap. Also the same year, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was passed. That is one of the major pieces of legislation that still exists today. It sets up funding for textbooks and other services in public and private schools. Also, it ensures that Title I money, that Title I students have access to sufficient educational materials. It also set up for new standards for teacher training, facilities, etc., ideally to balance out racial inequality in school systems and equality of access. Now, what should be noted with this piece of legislation is that there are a couple main shifts. Before, especially under the National Defense Education Act, money was just general aid. It was given to the states do what they want with it. All right? With Elementary and Secondary Education Act, it moves to categorical grants, which means the states have to justify how they spend it. Now, again, the federal government uses poverty, general welfare, commerce, and defense as means to justify this encroachment on a state right. By allowing state education departments to distribute these funds, it calmed the public and the states down so they could work together and not feel like the federal government was encroaching on education. 1969, we see the birth of the nation's report card. Francis Keppel, who was the U.S. Commissioner of Education from 1962 to 1965, indicated that we needed a national means of evaluating schools if we're going to hold them accountable. Because from 1867, when the first Department of Education was founded, all the way up to 1969, so almost 200 years, there was no standard form of collecting statistical data to know exactly what students were learning, what schools were doing, what children know. So the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also known as the nation's report card, was founded in 1969 to give a nationally representative continuing assessment of American students and what they know. They covered math, science, writing, history, civics, geography, and the arts. Now, one thing that people should be aware of, this was basically to get statistical information. There was no accountability yet. It would also give the Department of Education, that would soon be founded, an idea of where to spend federal dollars. All right, let's move into the late 20th century now. In 1979, the birth of the current Department of Education. Throughout the rest of the 1970s, we see more funding being put towards handicapped students, special ed, bilingual students, more federal government role in racial balancing. Jimmy Carter felt it was very important that the Department of Education be made a full-fledged cabinet department. So in 1979, he passed the Department of Education Act. 1983, the National Commission of Excellence in Education releases a report that all of us know very well, A Nation at Risk. It was highly critical of our school systems. Our school systems were declining. Taxpayers want to know where their money is being spent, but we are falling off the world stage in education. At that point, we're in an economic war with Japan. Japan and Asian students are much better prepared for the workforce than our students, and the American public wants to know why. And basically, it sets off the standards accountability era that we live in today. The quote from The Nation at Risk was to fight a rising tide of mediocrity. And this sent all sorts of political leaders at state level, federal level, on the campaign to make schools accountable, both financially and performance-wise. As we move into the first Bush administration, President George Bush proposed the America 2000, which was a federal initiative, a school improvement program, basically requiring the National Education Performance Assessment, the report card, to cover grades 4, 8, and 12 in English, math, and science. At the same time, all 50 states formed a consortium of governors, and states worked on what they called Goals 2000 under the leadership of Governor Bill Clinton from the state of Arkansas. And they came up with, by the year 2000, that all preschoolers would be school ready, the nation's graduation rate would be 90%, that not only would we test grades 4, 8, and 12 in English, math, and science, but also social studies, foreign language, and critical thinking. It would also go on to say that by the year 2000, we'd have 100% adult literacy, 100% school safety, and teachers' access to professional development. While all well is, we know that did not happen. 2002, No Child Left Behind. Cue the ominous music. While it was a sweeping education reform, we all know what happened. No Child Left Behind was to force states in an unfunded mandate to increase school performance. And it was a do it or else kind of piece of legislation. The ultimate goal, if your schools did not make AYP after a certain number of years, teachers risk getting fired, schools getting shut down, federal government takeover, conversion to charter schools. This is how No Child Left Behind works. This is also where we saw the birth of all of our state standards. In Virginia, we call those the SOLs, which did cause a lot of tension between the state and federal government because it was an unfunded mandate. Pretty much the federal government said, here, you're going to fix this. Every student's going to pass all 4 main areas by 2014, and we're not going to give you any money to help you. And the end results, we saw a huge dumbing down of standards. While student scores were increasing, curriculums were not enforcing critical thinking. They were very simplistic, and we still had a wide range of negative effects, such as test anxiety, over-testing, teachers teaching to the test. All in all, No Child Left Behind was a colossal failure. One shining piece of the Bush years was the 2004 reenactment of the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. What the main takeaway from this was really the protection of special needs children. forcing that no longer schools could separate special needs children away from the general population. It called for free and appropriate public education, mainstreaming and least restrictive environments, and that we make all accommodations necessary for special needs children to test and learn in a situation that is similar to their peers. Fast forward to the Obama years at the beginning of the 21st century with Race to the Top. In 2009, as part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, a stimulus package to kickstart the economy and get us out of the recession that we entered into in 2008, the Department of Education was allotted $4.35 billion to get to public schools that showed improvement. And it was a contest. It was very different. It was a contest. Had many qualifications. Primarily, you had to improve rigor, you had to improve scores, and you had to tie to merit teacher pay. Also in 2009, we see the birth of Common Core standards. 48 states led an initiative to seek a uniform standard, uniform assessments. Unlike the No Child Left Behind Act, the uniform assessments of the Common Core are developed in conjunction with teachers. Today, 42 states in the District of Columbia, 4 territories, and the Department of Defense have adopted Common Core. Virginia is still a holdout to Common Core, but Common Core is moving nationwide. And that finally brings us to 2015. No Child Left Behind. On December 3rd, 2015, No Child Left Behind was repealed and replaced with the Every Student Succeeds Act. The biggest difference, unlike No Child Left Behind, this reform gives states a lot more wiggle room. States can do what they feel is best to improve funding, not improve education using federal funding, not be tied to the one-size-fits-all approach for No Child Left Behind. It reduces the number of standardized tests nationally down to math and English only. Now, other states can still have their standards, but for the federal purposes, it's only math and English. So where does that leave us? Well, we are now entering the post-No Child Left Behind years. Hopefully, we'll see a reduction in the number of tests our students take. Already in Virginia, we're seeing quite a large number of reduction of tests under Governor McAuliffe, and we're also seeing increase in rigor. We're seeing more performance-based and authentic assessment. And personally, I feel this is what this country needs to push us into 21st century needs, to meet the needs of our economy, to meet the needs of our students, to better prepare them for the workforce. Thank you very much for this brief history of public education.